Well, numbers show that more than 4,000 kids need foster families in Maryland. Foster kids thrive better in family settings as opposed to a group home. However, finding enough foster parents to meet the current demand is proving very difficult. Today on Community Connections, we'll explore the needs, challenges, and programs of 3 Maryland organizations that are addressing foster care as well as other needs of youth and individuals in foster care. The ARC Northern Chesapeake region is best known because it supports individuals with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities from birth through the end of life. However, its foster care program is also a primary focus. Joining me to share more is Steve Arsano, Director of Family and Children's Supports. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about your program.
So we serve kids in foster care. We are based in Harford County, but we actually serve kids from all across the state. Our program has been serving kids for the past 25 years. And so we've seen incredible stories come through our program, so many different success stories that we're so proud of.
So what is your main role when it comes to foster care?
So we license our own foster families. And once we have those foster families, then we are trying to match those families with kids who are in need of a loving and nurturing home. So we work with Department of Social Services to try to make those matches.
So let's talk about the role of a foster parent. What does that entail? We hear about it all the time on television, movies, but what exactly does that entail?
So it's more than just providing a bed for a child to sleep in. It's really about nurturing. It's about trying to help that child heal from the trauma that they've been through. No kid wants to be in the foster care system, and so part of what we ask our foster families to do is participate actively in that healing process. And it really starts with relationships.
So what kind of supports do the parents of these children get?
Yeah, so we know that raising kids is not easy. And so our staff offer support around the clock, so 24/7. If a foster family has questions, concerns, if there's an emergency, we're only a phone call away. And so anything that comes up, any need that needs to be attended to, we're there to support the families.
And when I hear a number like 4,000, I think that's almost a graduating class at a small high school.
Right.
That's a lot of kids. Why is that number so big in Maryland?
Well, it's actually an issue not just in Maryland, but across the country. Kids come into care because of neglect or abuse, and unfortunately that happens in our society. And so foster care is a safety net for these kids so that they have somewhere to go, that they can feel safe, both physically and emotionally, and then hopefully reunite with their biological family. That's the ultimate goal, is for those kids to go back with their biological family. If it's not possible, then we look towards the foster families as a secondary option.
Right, and speaking of family, we hear this all the time. Sometimes family is not blood. So let's talk about the impact that foster parents can actually have on these kids.
Yeah, so impact, or how we measure success or impact. We look at data, we look at different metrics, but it really comes down to 2 things at its core. It's connection and relationships. And so our foster families, any foster family, if they can connect with that child, and if they can establish a really positive, nurturing, loving relationship, that impact lasts a lifetime, not just the time that child is with them in their home. And so that's how we measure impact and success, is about that connection and that relationship.
Yeah, so I guess the big question is, you can't just wake up one day and say, I'm gonna be a foster parent, right? Obviously there's qualifications, there's training. Talk to me about that. Yeah,
so some of the qualifications, you have to be at least 21 years old. You have to have a stable life, right? And so these kids coming into foster care are coming from instability.
Right.
And so we are looking for families who can provide that stability. And so we're looking for families who are financially able to meet their own obligations, that can have the time and the energy to dedicate to a child. And not every family is in a position to do that.
Right.
So we understand that. But we are looking for families to be able to go through the onboarding process, which includes some training even before you have a child, and then a home study process that we really get to know our families on a real level, because then we can make a better match with,
Right.
with those kids.
And I assume there's some kind of background check that goes along with that outside of whether they have a stable income and things like that, right?
Yeah, the background checks, and oftentimes we hear, why there are so many hoops that a family has to jump through. And there's a reason for that, because we need to make sure that if a child is going to be entering a new home, that home is ready and able to care for that. We don't want kids hopping from home to home, because
Right.
that just re-traumatizes them.
Right. What if you already have like your own biological children? Can you still be a foster parent?
Absolutely. Yeah, our families come in all shapes and sizes, and so yes, families, you can own your own home, you can rent an apartment. It really doesn't matter so much the makeup of your family. It really is about the matching, and how are we going to make sure that the kids that we serve get their needs met. And so part of what we do is that we talk with the families about what are their strengths, right? They're the expert on themselves.
Right.
And so we ask them what they think their strengths are, what they're comfortable with, and that starts part of the matching process.
Absolutely. Last question. I know you have a success story. In about a minute, tell me one of your best success stories.
We have so many. Well, what I would say now is that we have 3 teenagers right now in our program who are holding down part-time jobs as well as going to college. And they are well on their way to become independent. They are managing their money and developing skills that all adults need to do, and they're able to do that because they have the support of those foster families.
Yeah, so across the board, this is a very huge topic.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So Steve, how could people get in touch with the ARC program if they want to learn more?
So the easiest way to get in touch with us is through our website. It's arcncr.org. There we have a treatment foster care tab that they can watch videos of youth actually telling their story, and they can also hear from the foster families. And if they want to submit an application, they can do that there as well.
Awesome. All right. All right, Steve, thank you for that information about the ARC Northern Chesapeake Region Foster Care Program. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a foster parent, visit arcncr.org. When we come back, we'll learn about treatment foster care and why many foster kids need this type of care.
A lot of my friends told me that I wasn't going to be able to do it. You don't need to start out with a teenager because they've had all these things that they've gone through.
Could we give him the things he needed to be a successful adult?
What parent isn't worried about, what am I not doing right? What am I not doing enough?
That's my son.
My dad showcased a sense of love that I never had before.
I had a rough time, but I saw that even though the way I was acting, they didn't push me away.
She says that we're her heroes, but she's also mine.
I've had 3 other mother figures in my life, but only one of them has taught me how a mother loves.
How you guys raised me is absolutely amazing. And I really, really appreciate that.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms.
Thank you.
Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast?
No thanks, we're good.
They're always in their own world.
How'd you get there?
Twice the work. Twice the surprises.
Just try it.
But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling.
I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
Well, it's safe to say we can all agree that every kid deserves to grow up in a safe, nurturing family. There is a foster care crisis in Maryland because there are not enough foster homes. Some youth are currently living in hotels at a cost of, get this, $1,400 a day per child because of a lack of adequate homes. Many children in foster care have experienced trauma and their needs require special care. The group Building Families for Children is a faith-based nonprofit with a mission to help Maryland's most vulnerable children and their families thrive, providing trauma-focused supportive services with Christ-like love and compassion. Tricia Sacklis, the executive director, joins us to explain. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us about your program.
Yeah, so we've been providing treatment foster care in Maryland through our chosen treatment foster care program since 1990, which is actually when treatment foster care started in Maryland. So we served vulnerable children in the foster care system who have experienced emotional and behavioral issues because of the trauma that they experienced. So we recruit foster families to provide homes and provide all of the basic needs, but all of the therapeutic needs as well, providing trauma-focused services to that youth in their home and hopefully set them on the path for healing.
So how are you getting your cases referred to you?
Yeah, so the local Department of Social Services from around the state send us referrals. We get referrals every day. We get a total of over 1,600 referrals per year. So the need is great. So we really just need more foster families. As you know, there's a crisis in Maryland in terms of the total number of foster families. And at Building Families for Children in our chosen program, we also are in need of more foster families.
So how exactly does treatment foster care work?
Yeah.
Explain that whole process.
Yeah, sure. So when a child is initially removed from their biological family, they are, the court sets a permanency plan for that youth, which is typically reunification. Then they place the child into foster care, and there's two levels of foster care. There's regular foster care, which is just sort of the foster parent provides for the basic needs of the child. And then when the child is in need of additional support, they would refer to treatment foster care for private agencies like Building Families for Children. So, and we provide that extra level of support to those children that need it.
So are they still living in a foster home, or
Yes.
are they, okay.
Yep, so it's just another level of foster care. So there's regular foster care provided by regular foster care parents, and then there's treatment foster care.
So with the trauma aspect, how hard is it to place a child that may need treatment foster care?
I mean, it's difficult, and the ages of the kids we're talking about is we really can serve from birth all the way up to the age of 21, but a majority of the kids that we serve are teenagers.
Right.
So it's difficult to find homes for the children with these needs and teenagers on top of that. But we provide the parents all of the support and training that they need to be able to meet the needs of the youth in their home.
So I guess that leads into my next question. Why choose your program?
Yeah, so we are a faith-based organization. We have a long history in Maryland. We started way back in 1920, but we've been providing treatment foster care since 1990 when treatment foster care started in Maryland. So, and we also use an evidence-based model called trust-based relational intervention, or TBRI. So it's been proven effective with kids from hard places, as we say.
Right.
And that is evidence-based. It's also trauma-focused, and it's based in attachment theory. So this is training. Training on this model is everything. All of our foster parents receive training on this model, and that provides them the skills they need to then go into the home and provide therapeutic services to the youth.
So from a number standpoint, how big would you say that 4,000 population is that need this additional treatment?
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe in the 1,000 range as far as kids that need the level of care, which is treatment foster care. Yeah.
1,000. So with that, you're looking at placing 1,000 kids in various houses across the state, I would assume.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, there are foster homes across the state. Again, not enough foster homes,
Right.
but yeah. So we serve Baltimore and all the surrounding counties, but could receive referrals from the local Department of Social Services from all around the state.
Right.
So when DSS, as we call them, refers children, they try to keep them within the same county. But sometimes that's not possible because of the availability of foster homes.
Absolutely. What services or support do you provide the actual foster parent?
So we provide a lot of training. So I mentioned the model that we use, TBRI. So that is a lot of the initial training we provide to parents is on that model. We provide a lot of ongoing training, and then we provide weekly home visits by a licensed social worker, and the training continues in the home as soon as the placement starts. So a lot of training. We provide 24-hour help to foster parents as needed, and we also provide a monthly tax-free stipend to our foster parents, which covers all of the basic needs of the youth as well as all the therapeutic needs. And we also provide respite care, which is like a break for the foster parent where the child would go to another approved foster home for the weekend.
How long does a foster parent actually foster or care for a youth? Is there a time frame on that?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, treatment foster care is not meant to be a permanent solution for youth, so it is temporary. So it could be anywhere from a couple of months all the way up to a couple of years, depending on the child's situation. So as I had mentioned before, when a child first comes into care, there's a permanency plan set by the court, and it's typically to reunify with a biological family member.
Right.
So if that doesn't happen, though, if that can't happen, then that child, they'd be looking for an adoptive resource or maybe a foster family that could take guardianship of that child. And for older youth, it's actually, the plan is usually independent living.
Okay. Really quick, we got about a minute left. Can you share a quick success story of a child going from treatment foster care onto a normal life, if you will?
Yeah. So I have we have a great success story. She's currently in our program. She's 18 years old. She was just named a winner of the Maryland Youth Leaders Program and was given an award by Governor Wes Moore and his wife. And she was given a $2,000 scholarship for winning. She's a remarkable young woman. She's been in our program for about a year and a half. She's already a certified CNA, and she is applying to colleges. She's graduating in June, applying to nursing school.
Wow.
So she's really remarkable, and it kind of shows you, a lot of people are scared off from fostering teenagers, but it kind of shows you what kind of an impact you can have, that we have really remarkable teenagers in the foster care program.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, if someone wants to help, how can they find out more?
Yeah, so our website is buildingfamiliesforchildren.org, so I would encourage you to go there. If you're interested in fostering, you can go on the website and look at our upcoming training sessions. Or even if you're maybe you can't foster, but you want to help, we have other resources for doing that, so please connect with us through our website.
Awesome. All right, Tricia, we'll leave it right there. Well, the foster care crisis is paramount concern in our state, and the need for foster parent is great. To learn more about treatment foster care, visit buildingfamiliesforchildren.org. When we return after these messages with CASA, court-appointed special advocates for children in foster care.
Do you want to go grab some frozen yogurt tonight?
Maybe another time. Thanks, though.
Hey, Charles, how do you like your burger?
Ooh, well done, I hope. I love this tree. Hey, honey. We thought we'd try something new.
Family art hour.
Come on, sit down.
Okay, guys, what do you think? That is you.
Oh, you got jokes. You're funny.
That is you, and that is your son and your other son. Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Owen, when you came into my life, it was a whirlwind.
I just can't do it.
We didn't know what the future would hold, but we knew you would always be a part of it. Adopting you was the best decision in our life, and I am so proud to call you my son.
So there are about 600 kids in foster care in Baltimore County each year. CASA of Baltimore County currently serves about 1/3 of those children. Court-appointed special advocates, or CASAs, are volunteers who are appointed by a judge to represent the best interest of foster kids. These volunteers ensure that a child's educational, medical, social service, and mental health needs are understood and represented. They also ensure the court hears what's best for the child and that these children have hope for the future. Joining us today to talk about it is Penzie Huff, board member and volunteer with CASA of Baltimore County. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for being here and having us.
Absolutely. So tell us more about CASA.
So first I want to say, CASA is the acronym for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, often confused with CASA as the Hispanic organization that helps house immigration. Yes, so we have to clarify that. CASA is a wonderful organization. It's actually a national organization, and we've been here in the Baltimore County for about since 2000, so it's 25th anniversary. And our primary mission is to provide an immediate and sustainable impact on the life of a child. It's very one-on-one. We start working with children when they are in the foster care system. And what happens is that these children are taken away from the only family they know, even though there's abuse, neglect, loss, tragic loss, and they're put into this foster care system where they have no advocate. And I think the child welfare system is so overburdened and stretched that these kids can get lost in the cracks. And so what CASA provides is a one-on-one advocacy mentorship with these children. And I think what's special is, number one, we follow these children from foster home to foster home, from school to school, from social worker to social worker. And one of the reasons it's so critical is I also volunteer, and I had a young man, like 15, who within a year went to 8 different foster homes, 6 different high schools. And can you imagine like trying to navigate that? And I was the one consistent person in his life, meeting with the schools, fighting for his rights, what he deserves, what he needs. But it was a really dicey situation for him and very difficult to succeed under those circumstances. So as a CASA, you're the one, because we are empowered by the courts, we are appointed by either a judge, a lawyer, or someone from the Department of Social Services. We are allowed to go into this child's medical records, to their educational records, and their health records. So we are able to really understand what is happening with that child. And we have access to everybody because we're court appointed. So we really have a view of how this child is progressing or not.
And you guys are volunteer-based, right? But you are granted access through the court. So I assume just your average Joe Blow off the street and couldn't come in and say, hey, I want to be a volunteer for this. So what goes into becoming a volunteer with CASA?
So they go through a criminal record check. I mean, we're very careful on who. I mean, we are working with children. So we are very careful with who can come in, who can become a volunteer. And then we go through extensive training. And our skeleton staff, which we are woefully understaffed, monitor and work with the volunteers. So they are supervising. So there is a constant communication between the volunteer, their supervisor, the Department of Social Services, their social worker. So it's a real conduit to all the areas that can impact this child.
And you said about 600 kids, but you're understaffed.
Here's the rub. There are 600 kids in Baltimore County who are in need of a CASA. We are only serving a little under 200.
Because of staffing?
Because of staff, because each account supervisor can only supervise about 30 volunteer, and we are so skeleton staff that even with more volunteers, we're not able to provide the supervision, and we don't want to skimp on that. That's a very important part. So that's the problem. We need to be able to grow to provide more services to these children, because you know, we're serving less than 200, and I think every child deserves to have a CASA in their corner.
So I guess the big question is, what happens to the other 400 in the meantime?
They are without that type of advocate. And you think about these kids that go into this system, and they're taken away from everything they know, and whether it was good or bad, it's what they're familiar with. And there they are, placed in a foster home. And sometimes, and I think this was something that was kind of dealt with, is these kids are coming from trauma. They're not, you know, these are kids that have had neglect, abuse, death of a parent, incarceration, you know, all of these things. So they're coming from a very traumatic background. You go into a foster home, and they are not necessarily ready to deal with those kind of behavioral issues through no fault of their own. But I mean, it's, you know, it's a little bit shocking. And then sometimes there's just not a good match. So, you know, just like anything, it's just not a good gel. They don't gel. So there's a problem with the availability. And then, of course, there's a problem with volunteers. I mean, we need volunteers. But we need to increase the staff to be able to handle that.
We got about a minute and a half left. Let's talk funding. How are you guys funded?
So we are funded just a little over 50% by the government. That's federal, state, county. We have some foundation money and then individual funding. And it's just simply not enough. And then with the budget cuts, the possibility of budget cuts, it kind of leaves us in this position where we, from, you know, budget planning, are like, well, how many volunteers can we supervise? Can we get a new supervisor? Because it's a bit unsure. You know, we are a bit concerned about, you know, budget cuts. So, you know, if we had more people, we would serve more children, because everyone deserves it.
Absolutely. Most important question. How can people find out more information? What's your website?
So our website is CASA Baltimore County, and our phone number should be listed. And I think the 3 ways that someone can get involved is either become a donor or a volunteer, because that is a commitment. You know, you're trained, you have to see this child, or, you know, as a sponsorship. You know, go to your company, you know, they can match sponsorships, do those things, you know, to become, you know, a spokesperson for CASA, because they're the most vulnerable segment in our society. And they need us.
Absolutely. We'll leave it right there. All right, Ms. Huff, thank you so much. More than 4,000 kids in need of foster care families in Maryland. Finding foster care homes to accommodate that number is proving difficult. A child is waiting. My thanks to ARC, Northern Chesapeake Region, Building Families for Children in CASA of Baltimore County for their outreach to Maryland's most vulnerable children. For more on how you can support their work, visit their websites and then consider becoming an advocate for a child's well-being.